This is J.G. Hertzler. You're listening to NX 7062 Podcast.
Yes, you are listening to the NX 7062 Podcast. Thank you, J.G. Hertzler, for that intro, as always. And every time I hear all these intros that I got in Vegas, it just makes me miss Vegas that much more. And just so excited for the fact that hopefully things are looking up and we will all have a chance to get together when August rolls around. It's less than, I don't know, I haven't checked. Well, yes, I did. I checked the other day. It was like 162 days. So, it's going to be here sooner than you think. Creation's Las Vegas convention, now called the 55-year mission, since they lost their contract with CBS. And, it's funny because I was looking at some pictures. I have a Amazon Fire Stick, and when it's on pause too long, I have a slideshow set up, and I'm looking at all these slideshows and all the fun stuff that I did when I was there in 2019. And it's just sad because there's stuff that's not going to be there. I mean, it's going to be different without CB. 162 days and 57 minutes. It's going to be different in some very noticeable ways, but obviously the celebrity guests are going to be there. There's 103 so far. That hasn't been updated actually since a month ago, February 1st. But anyway, so my friend and I posed in the Regeneration Chamber. I posed in the Antagonizing booth, which was invented, as some of us know, if you watched In a Mirror Darkly, Major Malcolm Reed of the Makos and Dr. Phlox in the Mirror Universe invented that agonizing booth. So of course I had to get my picture taken in the agonizing booth. That kind of stuff, all that licensed stuff isn't going to be there. But you know what? The people are still going to be there. And the celebrities are still going to be there. I'm going to be there. It's still going to be an amazing, amazing time. So, as always, it is what? It's 10:03, give or take. Hey, domestic, how are you? It's 10:03 here on the East Coast. It's Monday night, so you're hanging out with the NX 7062 Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie K. I have some amazing, amazing news about next week's show, but you're going to have to hang out with me to find out what it is, because I'm going to save the announcement for the end. But suffice to say, I know what I'm doing next week. But you know what? Let's just talk about a couple of little things. My buddy Robert Plant, who, as you all know, he's usually the first one here, but this is the second week in a row somebody's beaten him here. I think Magic Lasso beat him last week. This week, Domestic beat him, if he's going to show up. But he has actually contributed to the Voyager documentary, which is amazing. And thank you to Robert. And thank you to everybody that's contributed. I talked to Ryan Husk today. They are just about at the 400K mark for investors, supporters, and they are, in his words, super happy. So anybody out there that hasn't hit up Voyage Documentary, which is how you're going to find them on all the socials, and donated to their Indiegogo, go Indiegogo and donate to Voyager. I did not mention San Diego Comic-Con canceling this July. I did not see that San Diego Comic-Con canceled for July. All I will say is that I am still holding out hope for Vegas, because Nevada and California are very different. It's like Disneyland is closed, but Disney World is open. So, hey, there he is, Robert. I was just talking about you and being one of the donators for Voyager documentary. So I'll say it again, Robert, thank you so much for your donation. I did actually mention it today to Ryan Husk, and they are so happy. He's super busy helping with working on the doc, and there's a lot going on, and he couldn't be happier. And they're super excited with the generosity of the Trek family. But back to what Domestic says. Hey, Travis, how are you? Always good to see you guys. Back to what Domestic said. I had not heard. San Diego Comic-Con is actually also, the other thing too, is San Diego Comic-Con is way bigger than Star Trek Las Vegas and way more crowded. I know people that have gone, and it's crazy. So that could also be another reason why they're canceling now. I'm hoping with the vaccines being rolled out and everything that Vegas will be back to normal. And listen, I have a lot of respect for people that may think that August is too early. And that is totally fine. I respect that. I'm still holding out hope that things will be solid enough for me to feel comfortable. Right now, my reservations are all made. So I am hoping that things will be good enough that I will feel comfortable going in August. But we'll see how it is. But if there's an STLV and people don't want to go, they think it's too soon, total respect. But I'm hoping that I will be able to go. And I am doing pretty good. Travis, hope you're doing well. You know what? It's just so funny. Once again, I had the green screen absolutely perfect, and then everything fell apart at like 9:59. But as you can see, I fixed it enough that I'm here and happy with it. But it was just so funny because once again, like I was just like, again, everything's perfect. I barely breathed on anything, and then it all fell apart. But here I am. So, in case I know, Travis, you were going to try and go to GalaxyCon Live's Deep Space Nine Q&A panel on Saturday. I don't know if you made it. If you did, I hope you had a great time. I hope you got a chance to ask Nicole a question. I know you're a big Nicole DeBoer fan. They have some more Star Trek stuff coming up. They've got Klingons. GalaxyCon Live has Klingons on Sunday, March 7th at 4 p.m. A couple of my favorites. You just heard him. J.G. Hertzler is going to be there. And, of course, if there's J.G., there's Bob O'Reilly. Susie Plaxton and Gwyneth Walsh are all going to be doing a Klingon panel for GalaxyCon Live. Then they're kind of having a very Trekky Saturday the 27th because at noon you've got the one, the only William Shatner. And then if that is not enough, at 6 p.m. the same day, Saturday the 27th, you got your villains. You got your Jeff Combs, you got your Casey Biggs, you got your Vaughn Armstrong, and you've got Steve Rankin, who was in a bunch of stuff, including Enterprise, and I didn't recognize the character name. And I am so glad you had a good time. Those panels are really good. GalaxyCon panels are really, really good. I really do recommend them. I'm assuming that whatever Nicole was on didn't crap out like it did when she was on here. You know, like I said, she owes me. We're probably just going to try it again next Halloween. If she's not busy in shooting, because hopefully Private Eyes is still going to be going on. So let's see. Oh yeah, see that's so tough. Like I never know. Oh, they were just different. Everybody's got their own question, you know. But I know how you feel. But your question, if your question was important to you, then nobody else's question was any better. They were all just different. And you know, Travis, I've always got your back. If it's a question that I think I can get answered for you in Vegas, if you're not going to be there, you know, I'll get it done for you if I can. And maybe I'll even do it on video this year, since this is video. Maybe I can talk the actors into doing video with me this year. Unlike last year when it was all audio. We'll see. Don't know. It's all up to them. Okay. So on to the main topic, on to the main event, on to the main attraction. And I have to tell you, last Monday when I told you guys that I didn't know what tonight's topic was going to be, I wasn't kidding. But what happened was I went to bed, and as you all know, when I crawl into bed, I click over to my Heroes and Icons channel, and I like to fall asleep to what else but Enterprise. So I fell asleep to Enterprise, and the episode that was on was called Chosen Realm. It's, of course, anytime, Travis, anything I can do for my little chat pack 2. You can't do 2.0. You can't make a hashtag with a period, so we're chat pack 2. And War Dog, always good to see you. Thanks. You know, I'm actually going to be cutting through your neck of the woods. I am stopping in Bozeman, Montana. Side note before we get into this. Bozeman, Montana is on my list. I'm doing a road trip in May with a friend of mine. We're cutting through, we're going from Seattle. She lives in Seattle, and we're driving to Kentucky to visit her daughter. And yeah, I am flying east to drive west. I'm flying west to drive east. But the route that we want to take is taking us right through Bozeman. So I'm stopping in Bozeman probably at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. But at least I'll be able to go. Where's the statue? Let's see. What does War Dog have to say? Falling asleep to Enterprise. Falling asleep to Enterprise is always a good thing. And yep, there we go. Chat pack 2. Oh, well, there you go. It's only 8 hours. See, it's about 10 hours from Seattle, give or take, depending on traffic. And I've heard rumors that there are highways that don't have speed limits in Montana. So we're gonna do Bozeman just so I can stand there in my Enterprise gear and go, where's the statue? Kind of like, do some sort of Connor Trinneer thing. But there's a statue. I saw it. Oh, wait, what was that line? I've been there. There's a statue. That's the line. Anyway, so back to Chosen Realm. It's a season. There you go. There you go. That is exactly what got me. You beat me to it, Travis. That is exactly what got me to this point. To do the show about these kind of rehashed scripts. And as many times as I've seen Chosen Realm, it never really hit me until this last time that I watched it. And I think what it was when, spoiler alert, was the end. Because what happens is that these religious zealots, these aliens, these religious zealots, kind of fake their way onto the Enterprise with some ship trouble, and they end up taking over the Enterprise. And it turns out that they worship the spheres, and the sphere makers, and the anomalies are the maker's breath, and all this other jazz. And they feel like the Enterprise and its crew have desecrated the spheres because they've actually landed on them, and they've touched them, and things that you don't do to these sacred objects in their own mind. But they're religious zealots, and they are warring with these, and they've been warring for a very long time with these heretics. They want the Enterprise because the Enterprise is more technologically advanced, and they think the Enterprise is going to end the war with the heretics. And so they take over the Enterprise. They kidnap they hold everybody hostage. They take over the ship, and come to find out that the heretics are heretics because the right religion believes that the sphere makers created the spheres in like 8 days, and the heretics say 10 or something ridiculous like that. And I just remember when Trip looked at him and he's just like, what? It was either Trip or Archer. And it's like, that's really the difference. And in the wake of 9/11, which if you talk to anybody from Enterprise, they will tell you 9/11 had a profound impact on the writing of the show. The entire third season is basically based on what happened in 9/11. So obviously, Chosen Realm is this concept and this commentary on religious fanaticism, and it is right there with Let This Be Our Last Battlefield, which was, for the time, was the story of racism, because the only difference between Frank Gorshin's character and the other guy was that the black and white were on opposite sides of their face. Well, can't you see? His black is on the other side. Like, literally, that was the problem. Like, 2 days worth, 2 days difference in the creation. The black and the white are on opposite sides of the face. It's the same story, just looking at two different societal issues. Racism, which was for the time, but obviously post 9/11, religious fanaticism was for the time. And unlike the end of Let This Be Their Last Battlefield, where they got off the Enterprise and they're chasing each other around an empty planet, there was more of an impact in Enterprise because Archer took them all down in the shuttle, and he's like, do you want to see what you've come back to, what you're going to conquer, how right you were? And it's every city, everywhere is just been decimated. All because you guys couldn't agree on how long it took to create the spheres. So that's what made me think of all the other episodes that I've seen that are absolutely rehashed scripts. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some stories, I think, are absolutely worth telling again, especially when they have such impactful messages like Chosen Realm and Let This Be Our Last Battlefield. What was interesting was I was trying to see if there was anything in Memory Alpha or anything official that had a list of these parallel stories. There wasn't. What I found was these blog posts, and it was very interesting that people didn't understand the difference between a rehash script and sequels, because a lot of people were saying Trouble with Tribbles and then Trials and Tribulations, those were sequels. Those weren't redone scripts. Those are just stories building on previous stories. But what I'm talking about and what this show's about is we've got this great script that we used in TOS. Let's just reuse it in Enterprise, because after 5 different series, things get tired and sometimes fresh ideas aren't coming. And sometimes you really kind of want, in this instance, they both spoke for the time on various topics, and it fit. And I can't fault them for that at all. And I mean, seriously, that ending was just such a perfect ending for both episodes. But then you can look at things like The Naked Time and The Naked Now. Now, The Naked Time was original series, and then the first season of TNG, they did The Naked Now. I feel, and you could argue, well, you're not even a season in and you're already rehashing scripts, which is an argument that could be made. But the way I look at it is, I think that they were, and they might have been a little pushy with it, but I feel like they really wanted to set up that link between Next Gen and Generation. Like, hey, we're really here. This is really a spinoff. I know, we know how long it's been since the last one ended, but we're here, and this is Star Trek. I mean, look, you had Dr. McCoy in Encounter at Farpoint for his little send off, and then you've got and then not even a whole season in, you've got the Enterprise D falling prey to the same infection, just a mutated version of it, because it can never be as easy as, well, I remember somebody taking a shower in their clothes. Let's go see what the original Enterprise did. All fixed. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that might have been the first episode that Wesley saved the ship, which became sort of a thing. But Wesley came up with the idea of a Data saved the ship because, anyway, actually the two of them did it together now that I'm thinking about it. It was a great episode. I mean, you got that little surprise twist with Data and Yara, which you wouldn't have gotten in the original because they didn't, go that far. But I think their reasoning for rehashing a script so early on was just because they really wanted to kind of root that tie-in that, yes, this is Star Trek. And we didn't just name the ship Enterprise. There's a history here that we're trying to recognize. Because let me throw it back to Doctor Who. Unlike Doctor Who, they weren't as continuous as Doctor Who was. So they I think in the beginning of TNG, they really felt the need to kind of, pull the two together, TNG and TOS. I liked them both. And I absolutely understand the need to do something like that. The other one that and this is again, these are there's ones that I'm not familiar with that other people listed on where in my research I found ones that I'm not familiar with. So these are ones that I can speak to from personal experience. I watched one on Voyager. I caught like the tail end of it at some point, and everybody's in stasis except for 7 of 9 and the Doctor. And I went, wait, they're all in stasis because if they're awake, they're going to fall prey to some sort of radiation. So they're in these stasis. Wait, this sounds an awful lot like Doctor's Orders. And it really was pretty much Doctor's Orders. You've got a couple people on the ship that are immune to something that regular humans aren't. The only difference being is that Voyager stuck everybody in stasis tubes, but because it was a neurological issue on Enterprise, all Phlox had to do was put everybody to sleep and put them in a coma just so their brains weren't active, and that would protect them. I didn't watch enough of the Voyager episode to make a comment on it. Doctor's Orders happens to be one of my favorite Enterprise episodes, and I may have shared this story before, but since some of you are new, I'm going to share the story again. When I was a kid growing up, my grandmother was a huge Danny Kaye fan, and on Sundays they used to run a lot of Danny Kaye, Abbott and Costello, old comedy movies out of the Philly stations. My grandmother used to come over every Sunday, and we used to sit and watch. One of our favorite movies to watch together was The Court Jester, and it just so happens that is the movie that Dr. Phlox is watching by his own personal movie night. That whole thing with the vessel with the pestle has the brew that is true, and the chalice from the palace has the pellet with the poison. All of that, I knew that. I've known those lines. I love that movie, and the fact that Dr. Phlox was out of any movie that they could have had Dr. Phlox watching by himself, it was one of my family favorite movies. I just melted. I was like, oh my God, Enterprise is meant to be my favorite show. They did this. This is just the coolest thing in the world. So I always get a kick out of watching Doctor's Orders, and it was on the other night, and I will stay up just to see that episode. And again, for all of you newbies that may have not heard this John Billingsley story about Doctor's Orders, Phlox was by himself. And so at one point he's walking around naked, and he walks into sickbay, and they do that whole thing where he's putting stuff in front of him, or there's a plant. He said what he really wanted to do at some point in that scene was to be facing in one direction and turn around quickly and just have a plant on the other side of the room fall over. That was that's what he wanted for that scene. Ha ha ha. And of course, Paramount and the writers and everybody went, no. But he told me that story, and I thought, yeah, that would have been really funny, but no. But what those two shows have in common, obviously, there are certain people, but the characters that they had to utilize, yeah, it would have been hilarious. Yeah, that would have been hilarious. You're absolutely right. So the one thing that I found interesting is that the crew members that needed to stay awake and man the ship on both of them, in Voyager and in Enterprise, were the two characters that were least likely to want to be alone and be isolated. You had Seven of Nine, who was trying to get out of being a Borg and was still, in that collective hive kind of mentality. And now you're asking her to have her only companion be the Doctor. And she buries herself in work. And yeah, it would have been funny. I guess early 2000s were a little too much to push it. But Seven of Nine, buries herself in work, and Phlox has such a hard time dealing with it. And again, spoiler alert, that he hallucinates to Paul. He's got Porthos, but he says his people are so communal, so absolutely communal, that they can't even have monogamous marriages. They have to have, and everything's packed, and everybody's used to being on top of each other. And then he ends up having to be by himself for, the entire duration of this. I think is really interesting that both of the shows had that going on for them, that the two characters that least would have wanted to be alone had to be alone and had to deal with the isolation. And Phlox was so isolated, he ended up hallucinating to Paul to keep him company, and to Paul, of course, ironically being the one person on the crew that enjoys her alone time, but obviously the only one that would make sense, because they could have said, they had the ruse going, because maybe Vulcans are immune too. From a drunken challenge to the writers for him to be Starkers the whole time. Billingsley's great, and I've said this before, and I will absolutely say it again. If you go to STLV, literally be on the lookout. John Billingsley is one of the people that signs he doesn't sit in the vendor's room, he signs for creation at a set time. But he's usually there for a lot of the time. He's usually there for a few days, and he will just be literally wandering around the vendor's floor. I pretty much walked right into him in 2019 when I was leaving the vendor's room. I literally practically walked into him. He was chatting with Connor and his wife. So I got to meet his wife, Bonnie Frederico, who was, as I've mentioned before, was in Regeneration. She was the female scientist in Regeneration. She got turned into a Borg. And she was also the Major on Chuck. For anybody that's never watched Chuck, what the hell is wrong with you? Go watch Chuck. Chuck is awesome. And Tony Todd's in Chuck. I just started rewatching Chuck. Go watch Chuck. The one thing that I really enjoyed about those two episodes is you're watching is you're watching the two characters at least would have wanted to be alone, having to be alone to tend to the ship because they were the only ones that were immune to whatever was going on. Let's see, what else? Oh, and this is one that I'm really not familiar with. Thank you, Wikipedia, because I don't know, I don't use Wikipedia that much because, you know, it's fan run, so you can't, or I shouldn't say fan run, it's human, you know, it's just contributor based. So, you know, but it seems that they have every single episode of every single Star Trek series cataloged as its own entry. So I looked over Friendship 1 when somebody had said Friendship 1 from Voyager and Terra Nova from Enterprise. And they were pretty much the same. Terra Nova was let's see if I remember the synopsis for Friendship 1 was about a probe that got lost in the Delta Quadrant that this planet then blamed humankind for the destruction of the planet, but it really wasn't humans. It wasn't the crashed. Friendship 1 crashed on their planet, and it wasn't Friendship 1's fault. It was that some people used the technology poorly, and they tried to figure out how to save the species from this nuclear winters they were having. Whereas Terra Nova was a lost colony, which fell prey, one of the first colonies, far-flung Earth colonies, that fell prey to a meteor that struck the planet, and everybody went underground. But the second generation of settlers didn't remember because they were either not born yet or children when it happened. So yeah, there are definitely similarities, and yeah. So that was similar. Those were, you know, it's kind of interesting because you can sit here and you can look at something and say, you know, you want to see how much of a ripoff. Did they steal like a spec, or did they literally just rewrite it and change the names? Because Extinction in Enterprise and Identity Crisis in TNG were the same. And that's so funny because I haven't watched TNG in a very long time, and somehow, thankfully, before this all started, that episode popped into my head. I don't know if you guys remember Identity Crisis. It's the one where Geordi turned into this alien creature based on some away mission he had done years before he hit the Enterprise. And it turns out that he had picked up a bacteria with the rest of his crew on this mission, that because this is how the species reproduces, which I don't remember that explanation as far as, so you reproduce by taking over the bodies of other species, whatever. Majority turned into an alien, whereas in Extinction on Enterprise, which again was another third, I guess by the third season they were really running out of ideas because it seems like all this stuff is happening in the third season, except for Terra Nova. And then Extinction is when this race of people realized that they were dying out, and they made this virus that infected people that landed on their planet because they were trying to preserve their species. And Reed and Archer and Hoshi all got infected. T'Pol fortunately didn't, but they all got infected and they turned into these aliens, and they had this homing instinct to go back to the city. And they ended up in the city. They thought that they were going to find their kind, but they didn't. And it was all based on this species' desire to carry on genetically because they knew they were becoming extinct. Which is why at the end, Archer had them save a little vial of the virus because it was literally, he didn't want to be responsible for pretty much ending an entire species. I've decided that I think Lieutenant Reed, I think Dominic wins the award for most made up crew member, like the actor, that the Enterprise actor that yeah, the Iroquois. Thanks, Travis. Yeah, the Iroquois. Because I was thinking about it, he had to be a Suliban, then he was an Iroquois, and all the times he's gotten beaten up, they've had to slather him with special effects makeup. So I think and I'm not talking about somebody that shows up as a Klingon. I'm talking about just a regular human crew member that for some reason has had to end up in makeup. So yeah, I'm gonna have to ask Dominic about that maybe when I see him, if he was, but I really think Dominic wins the award for most time in the prosthetics chair. And also most beaten up, because he also seems to be the one that gets beaten up the most. The crew are we talking about where like old wounds were coming back and scars were healing, and like the nurse lost her baby because it went back, it became it just basically turned into cells again and dissolved into nothingness. Yeah, but that doesn't have an equal, like that doesn't have a parallel episode. Like there's nothing that I can think of, Robert, unless you can think of something that's like a parallel to that, because that's what we're kind of talking about, is parallel episodes. If you think of one, let me know, because like I said, I have doubts about this list, because it was a discussion among fans. There are ones that I'm not going to talk about because I'm not familiar with either, but there are people that have actually found similarities between a couple of animated series scripts and some Voyager stuff, which without ever seeing them, I can imagine that taking a animated script and putting it in Voyager makes actual sense, considering how few people were into the animated series. So taking something like that and turning it into Voyager, I think that's a great idea. I don't have a problem with that, or I think that's actually ingenious. Yeah, the one where Geordi became the glow-in-the-dark glow-in-the-dark critter. That's the one I was just talking about. That's called Identity Crisis, and that's the one that parallels. That's the one that parallels Extinction. But I think the one Robert's talking about is when, for some reason, like I said, all I remember of that episode is that the nurse, and her name is actually on the tip of my tongue, and I can't think of it, lost her baby because the baby actually went from being like a 6-month pregnant fetus to embryonic stage. It evolved, it de-evolved, it went backwards. And I think Geordi got his sight back. I don't remember that episode, but like I said, that doesn't parallel. No, it wasn't All Good Things. It wasn't All Good Things. I'm going to research it after the show. Maybe when Riker became a Neanderthal, but no, it wasn't All Good Things. Because that was Picard jumping through time. There was one where the crew was having, no, it wasn't. It wasn't All Good Things. I don't think. It was something else. They were trapped. I don't know. I'm going to look it up. I promise. I'm going to look it up, because I don't think it was All Good Things. Alyssa. The nurse's name, the Alyssa, was the one that lost the baby. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong, as they said. But there you go. Go ask Google. Go ask Google. I'm curious, because I really don't think it's All Good Things. Look up Alyssa's baby devolving or something. Because that's all I can remember. But the one that I thought was really interesting that somebody mentioned, they think that Star Trek the Motion Picture was basically an extension of the Changeling episode, which I thought was interesting, because the Changeling had that thing about its creator. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it was that one, but that was not All Good Things. Thank you, Robert. It wasn't All Good Things, though. But yeah, now that you've said that, yeah, it's that one. But I just thought that was. Oh, the name of the episode is Genesis. Thank you, War Dog. See, I knew it wasn't All Good Things. Sorry, yes, I do gloat sometimes. Happens. Because my TNG memories are so thin. Because I don't know why, I just haven't had the desire to rewatch TNG. Like, it's on every time you turn around. I've mentioned this before. Pluto TV has an entire station dedicated to Star Trek, and it seems like all it's showing is TNG. And BBC America shows TNG all the time. I have a problem with TNG not showing Enterprise, because it is the one with the only British actor playing a British character, and yet BBC America won't show it, but they'll show Deep Space Nine. Okay, well, yeah, Alexander Siddig, but still. Anyway, So I'm partial to Enterprise. We all know this. Yes, Mr. Google Pants does know all. I love the names you have for things. War Dog. There you go. There's Star Trek Pants. I don't know. War Dog, you are good at nicknaming things, so you come up with a nickname. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Star Trek the Motion Picture just ended up being a big extension of The Changeling? The Changeling actually happens to be one of my least favorite episodes of TOS. But, I mean, it is the same premise. It's artificial life form looking for its creator, thinking that it knows better. But I think at least V'ger was looking to grow, and I think Changeling had an ego. Changeling had an attitude. So bad. So anyway, those are the ones. And like I said, okay, just for shits and giggles, because I have no basis to talk about these because I have absolutely no idea about them. But the animated series, one of our planets is missing, and Voyager's the Cloud. And then animated series, the Time Trap, and Voyager's the Void. So I don't know if you guys know the animated series well enough to comment on that, but those are the ones that were suggested when I was watching. When I was doing my research, I actually researched this. Yeah, I thought her first name was Alyssa though. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Alyssa. I'm pretty sure her first name's Alyssa. I know she was, yeah. Agawa sounds right, but I'm pretty sure her first name's Alyssa. So we are just past the halfway mark. So we are at the point in the show where I start telling you all about all the fun stuff that you can do to support the podcast. Like, do things like follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Check out, subscribe here, subscribe on Twitch would be great. I would really appreciate that. Hang out on Patreon, like I've said before, for patrons, you get some perks. You get little gifties after 3 months of patronage. You get and you get access, unless you're War Dog, who doesn't do the face hugger. You get access to a special NX7062 Facebook page that I set up, where your questions will always get priorities with guests. You can actually suggest guests, even suggest topics for the show. And if you're not a patron, but maybe you want to just show your support for the NX7062 by advertising and wearing my podcast, then hit up my Teespring store at teespring.com/NX7062, the store, because that would be most helpful and most appreciated. There we go. See? Alyssa, see? The things that you remember, though. Thanks again, War Dog. The things that you remember, like weird things, like the nurse's first name, in the show notes and all other cool places to find you. Yeah, I could probably do that. I could probably tweet it out and Facebook it out so that people can click and find. That's an entirely cool possibility. Okay, so I've actually got 2 announcements. One of them I started to make last week, but then I think Magic Lasso, who's not here so I can bust on him, I'll just talk to him later, interrupted me or got me. Oh, yay! War Dog, thank you so much. Thank you. I hope the green, I know you would ask for green, so I hope the green was olive drab enough for you. But I, as you know, and as you have seen, I am a cat person. I also have a dog, too. He just doesn't make very many appearances. The dog's name is Anakin, because I am a Star Wars fan. But then, as you all know, I have a cat named Reed. I also have a cat named Kal-El, a.k.a. Podcat, who's around somewhere. So I do like to name my animals after my fandoms. Magic Lasso. When you put a cat on the show that doesn't want to be on the show, the cat will knock the green screen down. #facts. #truth. #truth. That was Reed. And I guess he figured I had Malcolm over here, so he didn't need to be here because, too many Reeds spoil the podcast. But yes, #facts. Thank you, Lasso. But don't you keep distracting me. Don't do that because I'm working my way up to an announcement. Reed's getting a trip. I have a friend in Florida. This is part of the reason I'm getting this cat. who works with a rescue, and I am going to say this, some asshole people adopted the cat a year ago, and then they were moving and all of a sudden decided after a year that people were allergic to the cat. Go figure. So they gave the cat back, which I can't stand people that do that they're moving and they can't be bothered to take the cat. One of my other adopted cats was like that. So I saw this poor cat's plight. He's the opposite coloring of Reed. Reed's a tuxedo. This cat's white with black markings. And he's from Florida. And I've always said that if I get another cat, his name's going to be Trip. So Reed is getting a Trip. My friends are actually going to Disney. This is another reason why I know this cat's meant to be here. I have a friend that's very involved in cat rescue. And I figured maybe she knew somebody who could get the cat to Jersey from Jacksonville. And it turns out she's actually going to Disney. She is also the only person I know that actually uses their timeshare. She's going to Disney. So on her way back up, she's going to go pick the cat up in Jacksonville, and we're going to meet and hang out. So let's see what War Dog has. I only have 13 cats and 2 dogs. Oh, War Dog, I am so sorry. There you go. Ducks and geese. Oh, how is that? Chickens and ducks and geese better scurry. I was briefly in the Oklahoma musical when I was in high school. I am so sorry about your dog. That's heartbreaking. So, all right, he wins. At least I don't feel so bad because now I'm going to have 7 cats. Domestic. There are lots of similarities that aren't probably parallel. The same ideas are reused. Yes, the same ideas absolutely are reused in shows. Absolutely. Because you know what? It's hard being a screenwriter on a weekly show. And let us not forget, back then it was, 20 episodes a season, not 15, not 16. No mid-season breaks. You pretty much went straight through except for maybe Christmas. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with reusing. I just, and like I said, as long as it's well done and there's, it's not a word-for-word remake of the script. Because let me tell you, I was so excited for Law & Order UK a few years back. I'm like, yay, new Law & Order. It wasn't new Law & Order. It was literally the same Law & Order scripts redone to suit UK audiences, which meant the police don't carry guns in the UK. But it was literally the same scripts. To it, I knew the endings. Like, they would get 2 lines into, because I'm a Law & Order junkie, they would get maybe 2 or 3 lines into an episode. I already know what the episode was and who did it. So, I still watched it. Prima Adjaman was in it, and then Peter Davidson was in it, so it was like a Doctor Who reunion. So, and it was still very good. And in fact, one of the guys that was one of the cops went on to be the Jodie Whittaker's companion. So there's a bunch of Doctor Who crossovers. But that, yeah. All right, let's see. What else is domestic? Keeping the lines open. We're going. Oh, no, I already clicked on that one. Let's see. Where an old man negotiator who takes up drugs to grow young, but the process doesn't stop. He ends up just sells. He ends up living the life of someone from a culture that no longer exists. Inner Light, yeah, which is the episode I actually don't like. Gala's baby was lost when she was exposed to the energies of an anti-time eruption. That is all good things? All right, well, that wasn't... Okay, well, that's fair. That I had the wrong... But it still wasn't... Okay, so here's the deal. Travis points, because you're right. Then that was all good things, but that still wasn't... I had her doing that in the wrong episode. That wasn't the episode I was thinking of. I was thinking of the other episode, Genesis. So that's where I got confused. But thank you, Travis. You were right on that one, so I appreciate that. Thank you. 20... Yeah, see, there you go. So, yeah, I can't blame them for finding other stuff to rehash. Or, finding old scripts and reusing them to kind of freshen things up. Let's see. All good things. Sorry, I like to gloat. You see? And I will let you gloat because you were right. So, absolutely, you totally get to gloat. Fair is fair. Everybody has time loop episodes. Enterprise's time episode, though, went forward because it was the one where they met their future selves if they didn't make the meeting. It's actually coming up on Heroes and Icons. I am still trying really, really hard to not be the nerd that knows all the names of all the episodes, just the episodes I really like. Okay, so that was announcement number 1. Reed is getting a trip, who will be here on March 13th. And Anakin must have heard me talking about him because he's working. Trip is gonna be here on the 13th, and maybe at some point he will make an appearance on the show, but I'm not gonna rush it. So the big announcement that I've been waiting 45 minutes to impart, and I am so excited about this because I just confirmed this tonight. We're going a little off script. We're going Star Trek adjacent next week because you all know that one of the premises of the show is I like to talk about what people do after Star Trek. I've had guests on to talk about current projects and things they're doing. Nicole DeBoer talked about Private Eyes. Connor came on to talk about Ben Frankly, the short film he did. And obviously we like to talk about Star Trek, but we also like to talk about, projects, because there is life after Star Trek. If you are a writer on a TV show, there is life after Star Trek. And what happened after TOS is a lot of the writers of Star Trek and Michael Westmore, who did all of that makeup and special effects and creatures for Star Trek, they all went over to Sid and Marty Krofft and worked on Land of the Lost, including Walter Koenig. So, as my very special guest, and I am so excited about this, as my guest next week, Wesley Ure, who starred as Will Marshall in Land of the Lost, will be here, and we're going to be talking about the writing, and we're going to be talking about Land of the Lost, because that's another part of my childhood that I absolutely love. Maybe we'll see if there's some similarities or in the writing between Star Trek and Land of the Lost. We'll talk about Walter Koenig writing for Land of the Lost and the character that he created, which I know, but I'm not going to spoil. So if you're a Land of the Lost fan, which I hope at least one or two of you are besides me, you'll definitely have to tune in next week. Wesley is somebody that I absolutely adore. We met in 2019. I think I've mentioned this. Their booth was next to the booth that I was in at Star Trek, and we struck up a friendship, and we've been friends ever since. So going on 2 years. So hopefully I'll have a chance to see him in September. They always do STLV because of their kinship with STLV. And hopefully I'll get to see him. I know he's had both of his corona shots, so I know he's being healthy. Yeah, and you know what? The other thing it has in common with TOS is they both were only 3 seasons. So War Dog, I hope you'll show up. The other cool thing that Wesley's been doing lately is William Shatner has a new movie out called Senior Moment with Gene Smart, and Wesley's in it. He's got a very small part. So we're not sure how much of it he's going to be in, because it's, as they say, it's not a part that drives the story. So they might drop it completely, or they might, cool it. And please ask him about Days of Our Lives. We can all ask him about Days of Our Lives. He was the original Mike Horton in Days of Our Lives. And trust me when I tell you that I pump him for information about Days of Our Lives constantly. One of the things that I absolutely love about Wesley, and one of the reasons he is one of my favorite people on the planet, is because he lets me fangirl out about Days of Our Lives. He was the original Mike Horton, the original adult Mike Horton. I think there might have been like a kid Mike Horton. He was the original adult Mike Horton. He's got stories about Days. He's got a great story about Deidre Hall. If you're a Days of Our Lives fan, like obviously Domestic is. So he's got yes. Oh, look at that. Robert's been checking it out. Yes, Christopher Lloyd is also in Senior Moment. It looks like it's going to be an amazing movie. So anyway, join me here next week, because that was my big announcement. Wesley Ure's going to be here. And besides Land of the Lost, which I loved, he was Mike Horton in Days of Our Lives, which to this day I still watch. And to this day, Deidre Hall is still in it. So, and for anybody else that was a huge fan of Sid and Marty growing up, Deidre Hall was also Electra Woman as an Electra Woman in Dyna Girl. So that is what's coming next week. I am so excited. I can't wait to see you guys all next week with me and my very, 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 very special guest, Wesley Ure. And I'm going to take War Dog's advice, and I will be putting up the link elsewhere. I know I've shared it on social before, but I will absolutely share it again. So please, you guys, COVID is still out there. Even if you're in line for a vaccination, or you've already gotten a vaccination, just remember, you can still actually carry the virus. So please, 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 please still wear your mask when you're out in public, because the more we do, the quicker we're all going to go get to see each other, the quicker I'm going to go get to collect on my hug from Connor Trenier. That's an IOU that's waiting to be collected. So hopefully we will all be out of this soon. Until I see you guys again next week, as always, have a great week. Thanks for joining me, and live long and prosper.
This is Nicole DeBoer, and you've been listening to the NX7062 podcast.